The arena was alive with noise, alien voices rising like thunder in the great Colosseum. Creatures from dozens of worlds had gathered, their glowing eyes fixed on the stage. They had come to watch the contests of strength and weaponry, to laugh, and to cheer. In the center stood a human named Daniel. He looked small compared to the towering alien warriors around him. His shoulders were broad for a human, but among these giants he seemed fragile. He wore only light armor and carried a weapon that looked almost like a toy. The alien crowd saw it and began to laugh. Some slapped their claws together. Others shouted insults in their own languages. The sound rolled like a storm. They had expected a real fight, not this. Standing across from him was an alien girl warrior named Soraka. She was tall, her skin like polished stone, her eyes glowing. With a sharp violet light, she carried a blade almost as long as Daniel himself. Heavy armor plates covered her body, and she walked with pride. When Soraka looked at Daniel's weapon, her laughter rang louder than the rest. "That is your weapon, human? That tiny stick?" she mocked. She pointed her blade toward him and smirked. "Do you plan to fight me with a toy, or will you surrender now before you embarrass yourself?" The crowd roared with more laughter. The sound echoed from the high walls. Some even began to chant her name. Daniel stood calm. His grip on the weapon never shook. His eyes scanned the arena, then returned to the alien girl. He did not answer her insult. Instead, he lifted his weapon slowly, holding it with steady hands. The sight made Soraka laugh harder. "Look at him. He thinks he can stand against me with that," she shouted to the audience. "Watch closely. This will be over in a single strike." The crowd cheered her words, believing every one of them. But Daniel's silence was strange. He showed no fear, no trembling. His expression was calm, his breathing steady. It was as if he was waiting. The announcer, a tall alien with silver horns, raised his staff. "The challenge begins now," he declared. The ground shook as the gates locked, sealing Daniel and Soraka inside. Soraka stepped forward first, her heavy boots thudding on the stone floor. She swung her massive blade onto her shoulder. Sparks fell from the edge. She looked at Daniel as if he was already defeated. Daniel took a single step forward. The crowd leaned closer. Some whispered, curious why he was not begging for mercy. Why did he not look afraid? Soraka raised her blade high. The metal shone under the arena lights. "Goodbye, human," she said. Her voice was full of pride. She charged. Her blade came down with a force that could split stone. The air screamed as the weapon cut through it. But Daniel moved. He sidestepped with surprising speed. The blade struck the floor, sending cracks across the stone. Dust filled the air. The crowd gasped. A human should not be able to move like that. His small frame allowed him to slip just out of reach. Soraka's confident smirk faltered. Daniel lifted his weapon again, pointing it toward her chest. His voice was calm, quiet, but it carried through the silence that had fallen. "Do not mistake small for weak," he said. The words were simple, but they cut through the arena like a blade. The crowd fell quiet for a moment, unsure what to think. Soraka snarled. "Empty words," she spat. She pulled her blade free from the cracked floor and swung again. This time Daniel raised his weapon. The alien crowd expected it to shatter, expected it to bend like soft metal, but instead, it blocked with a sharp ring. The impact sent sparks flying. The audience gasped again. Whispers spread quickly. How could that tiny weapon withstand the power of her strike? Daniel pushed back, forcing her to take a step away. His calm eyes never left hers. He looked almost bored, as if this fight was nothing new. Soraka growled. Her pride was burning. She could not allow this human to shame her. She charged again, faster, her blade sweeping from side to side, each strike strong enough to crush stone walls, and yet Daniel avoided them. Sometimes he blocked, sometimes he moved aside. His feet carried him smoothly across the arena, his weapon, small as it was, always in the right place. The laughter of the crowd began to fade. It was replaced with whispers of doubt. Some aliens leaned forward, their eyes narrowing. Was this human truly weak, or was he hiding something? Daniel's weapon glowed faintly for a moment. As if reacting to his grip, the audience did not notice, but Soraka did. For the first time, her smile slipped. Daniel tilted his head slightly. His calm voice came again. Laugh if you want, but laughter will not save you. The arena grew colder with those words. The crowd no longer laughed, they only watched. Soraka tightened her grip. She refused to believe a human could defeat her. She raised her blade once more, ready to prove herself, but deep in her chest, a small spark of fear had begun. The air inside the arena felt heavy. The laughter had faded, but pride still burned in Soraka's chest. She could not let a human make her look weak. She raised her chin, her violet eyes glowing like fire. You think you can dance around me forever? She shouted. Her voice carried across the stone walls. Then fight me properly, human. Stop running and show me your strength. Daniel did not answer at once. He simply studied her movements, his eyes calm, his weapon still held with steady hands. His silence made her angrier. The crowd began to chant again. Fight, fight, fight! Their voices shook the seats. They wanted blood. They wanted a clear winner. Daniel finally spoke, his tone quiet but firm. I do not run. I wait. His words made the alien spectators murmur. They had never seen such calmness in a human standing against one of their proud warriors. Soraka sneered. Her blade gleamed as she spun it once in her hand. Then stop waiting, tiny man. I challenge you here and now. Face me with that toy and prove if humans are worth anything at all. The announcer raised his staff once more. The duel is now official, he declared. Sparks crackled along the walls as protective shields rose to contain the battle. The arena's stone floor glowed, faintly with the energy barrier. Soraka wasted no time. She charged forward with a roar. Her step shook the ground, her blade cut through the air with the weight of thunder. Daniel met her rush head-on. His weapon looked small against her massive blade. Yet when the clash came, sparks exploded. The impact rang like a bell. The crowd leaned forward in disbelief. He did not break. He did not fall. The tiny weapon had blocked the alien warrior's full strike. Soraka pulled back with a growl, sweat already glistening on her forehead. She swung again, harder this time. Her strikes came fast, heavy, brutal. But Daniel's movements were smooth, precise. His weapon was always there to meet hers or to slip past her swings. Each time metal rang, the whispers in the crowd grew. Some aliens stared with wide eyes, others frowned, unable to believe what they were seeing. This should be impossible. One alien hissed. Her strength is far greater, yet the human does not fall. Soraka roared louder. She pushed her strikes into a furious storm. Her blade crashed against Daniel's weapon again and again. Stone shattered under her missed blows. Dust filled the air. But the human kept standing, he kept moving. Daniel's calm voice reached her ears between strikes. Strength without control is only noise. The words stung her pride. She snarled, silence. Her blade came down with all her force. Daniel did not dodge this time. He lifted his weapon high. It looked almost fragile against the giant blade, but when the weapons met, a shockwave rippled through the arena. The ground cracked. Beneath their feet, for a heartbeat, silence ruled. Then slowly Soraka felt the pressure. Her eyes widened as her massive blade began to slide back. The human was pushing her away. The crowd erupted in gasps and shouts. Some stood from their seats, unable to believe a human could overpower her. Soraka stumbled back a step. Her pride shaken, she tightened her grip again and glared at him. What are you hiding, human? She demanded. Her voice shook with both fury and a trace of fear. Daniel lowered his weapon calmly. If you think size is all that matters, you will never see the truth. His words echoed across the arena. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. The audience was no longer laughing. They were watching with hungry eyes, desperate to know what would happen next. Soraka growled deep in her throat. She circled Daniel now, more cautious. Her arrogance had cracked, but her pride demanded victory. She could not allow herself to lose, not in front of so many eyes. You may have tricks, human, she hissed, but I am a warrior born. You will not leave this arena standing. She leapt at him with sudden speed, her blade cutting in a deadly arc. But Daniel was faster. He slipped inside her swing, His small weapon tapped against the side of her armor. A sharp sound rang. Her eyes widened as she realized he had pierced the joint in her plating. Gasps filled the crowd. The human had struck a weak point with perfect precision. Soraka staggered back, her pride wounded even more than her body. She touched the damaged spot on her armor. Then she glared at Daniel with burning eyes. "You will pay for that," she growled. Daniel's voice was steady. "You mock what you do not understand, but soon you will see." The audience shivered at his words. A strange tension spread among them. It was no longer laughter but fear and curiosity. Soraka raised her blade again, her fury pushing her beyond reason. She swung wildly, determined to break him. The sound of their weapons rang again and again, louder and louder. Daniel blocked each strike, his weapon glowing faintly with every clash, but the glow went unnoticed by most. Only Soraka saw it, and her confidence cracked further. She shouted in rage, "What are you hiding, human? What is that weapon?" Daniel's lips curved into a small smile. His eyes locked onto hers, his voice calm but filled with weight. "Not yet," he said. "But soon." The words sent a chill. Through the crowd, suspense grew like a storm waiting to break. And in that moment, Soraka realized something she had never felt before. She was no longer laughing. She was no longer mocking. For the first time in her life, she felt the edge of mercy. The arena air was thick with dust and tension. The crowd that once laughed now leaned forward in silence. Every eye was locked on the small human standing against the alien warrior. Daniel's calmness was unsettling. His weapon still looked small, almost fragile, yet his presence carried weight that none could explain. Soraka circled him slowly, her armor scratched, her pride wounded. She had mocked him loudly before, but now her smirk had vanished. Her violet eyes glared at him with both anger and doubt. "You are no ordinary human," she growled, her blade resting heavy in her hands. "But it doesn't matter. You will still fall." Daniel's face did not change. His breathing was calm, his stance steady. He looked as if he was carved from stone. His voice came quiet but clear. "You think victory comes from strength alone? You are wrong." The words echoed. The audience shifted, whispers spread, aliens from different species exchanged uncertain looks. Some had never seen a human before, and now they questioned every tale they had heard of human weakness. Soraka snarled and attacked again. Her blade slashed through the air with deadly force. Sparks flew when it met Daniel's weapon, but he did not struggle. He turned her power aside with a single smooth movement, then he stepped back, untouched. It was not luck, it was not chance, it was skill. The crowd began to murmur louder. "How can this be?" One alien hissed, "He is so small, yet he moves like water, he wastes no motion." Another whispered, "It is like he knows every strike before it comes." Soraka heard the whispers. They burned her pride. Her people were watching. Her clan was watching. She could not be humiliated by a human. She roared and charged again, her blade hammered down with crushing speed. Daniel sidestepped, his small weapon flicked forward. A sharp strike rang against her shoulder plate. Her armor dented. Again, she gasped, her eyes widened. The crowd gasped with her. The whispers turned into excited shouts. This was no weakling, this was no joke. Daniel lowered his weapon, his voice calm. "You rely on power, I rely on precision. That is the difference." Soraka bared her teeth. Her pride was cracking. Her heart pounded. She could not understand why she felt so unsteady. She had fought stronger warriors before. But this human's confidence was like a shadow that pressed against her. Daniel moved closer, his steps quiet, his eyes sharp. He did not raise his voice, he simply said, "Every strike of yours reveals more. Every roar, every swing. You tell me who you are, and I listen." Those words unsettled her more than his weapon did. She realized he was studying her, reading her, turning her strength into weakness. The audience felt it too. The air grew colder. The laughter was long gone, replaced by awe and a slow fear. Soraka swung again, desperate to silence his words, but her strike missed. Daniel's body moved with flawless timing. His weapon tapped her knee joint, her leg nearly buckled. She stumbled, catching herself at the last moment. Gasps erupted again. Her pride bled with each mistake. Her people shouted her name, urging her to fight harder, but their voices only made the weight heavier on her chest. Daniel stopped moving. He stood straight and lowered his weapon, his eyes locked on hers, his voice calm. "You fight for pride. I fight for survival. That is why I will not lose." The arena froze at those words. Even the announcer held his breath. The silence stretched long. Soraka's hands shook on her blade. She hated his calmness, hated his confidence, yet she could not deny the truth pressing against her heart. He had not even shown his true strength, and still she was struggling. She roared again. "Then show me everything, human. Show me what you hide." Daniel tilted his head slightly. For the first time, a faint smile touched his lips. His voice was soft but carried to every corner of the arena. "Not yet," he said. "You are not ready." The crowd erupted in noise. Some cheered, some shouted in anger, but all were drawn closer. The suspense grew like fire. Soraka's eyes blazed. She rushed forward again. Her blade slashed in a furious storm. Dust and sparks filled the arena. Stone cracked beneath her fury, but Daniel slipped through the storm, his body weaving like water, his small weapon striking in short, sharp taps. Every touch left another dent, another scar. His movements were so controlled it was like he was dancing. The alien audience could not believe what they saw. A human dancing through death, calm as if he already knew the outcome. Soraka's chest heaved with breath. Sweat ran down her face. Her arms trembled with the weight of her blade. She felt exhaustion creeping in. But the human stood untouched, steady, unshaken. Daniel lowered his weapon once more, his voice steady. "This is why I do not fear, because I already know the truth. You cannot win." The words sank into Soraka like knives. Her body was strong, but her spirit faltered. For the first time in her life, she felt what it was like to be on the edge of defeat. The crowd roared in shock and excitement. They had come to laugh at a weak human. Instead, they found themselves watching a predator in human skin. Calm, controlled, unstoppable. And still, Daniel had not revealed the bigger power hidden below. The arena floor was cracked and broken. Dust hung in the air like smoke after a storm. The alien crowd had stopped laughing long ago. Now they leaned forward, their eyes wide, whispers running. Through every corner of the Colosseum, Soraka's chest heaved with every breath. Her mighty blade weighed heavier in her hands than it ever had before. She glared at Daniel, the human who should have been crushed in a single strike. Yet he stood calm, steady, untouched. His small weapon glimmered faintly in the arena light. "You cannot keep dodging forever," Soraka spat. Her pride cracked but not broken. "Your tiny toy will fail you. I will break you in the end." Daniel tilted his head, his eyes calm, his voice quiet but sharp. "You still do not understand, do you?" Soraka's anger flared. "Understand what?" she roared. She raised her blade high, the stone beneath her feet shattering from the force of her stance. The crowd roared with her, desperate for a climax. Daniel lifted his weapon, small compared to hers, he whispered. "That size means nothing. Control is everything." She rushed at him again. Her blade carved the air like lightning. Sparks flew when it struck his weapon. The sound of metal on metal rang through the Colosseum. But this time something different happened. When Daniel blocked, his weapon glowed brighter. A hum filled the air, low and deep. It rattled the bones of every spectator. The glow pulsed once, sending a faint ripple across the arena floor. The crowd gasped. Soraka froze for a moment, her eyes wide. Then she growled and pushed harder, trying to crush him with sheer power. But Daniel's weapon held strong. It did not break. It pushed back. The ripple of energy spread wider. Stones lifted slightly from the floor before crashing down again. The air itself seemed to vibrate. Whispers erupted among the aliens. "What is that? That weapon is not what it seems. The human is hiding something." Soraka's pride turned into fear. She swung again and again, her strikes wild with desperation. But every time, Daniel met her with perfect timing. And every time, his weapon glowed brighter, the hum louder. Finally, Daniel stepped forward into her storm of strikes. His small weapon slid along the edge of her blade. Sparks exploded, and with a single twist he knocked her weapon aside. The force made her stumble back 3 steps. The crowd gasped. Soraka snarled. Her eyes blazing with fury, she lunged forward again, determined to crush him. But Daniel did not move this time. He planted his feet firmly, lifted his weapon, and pressed something near its handle. The sound changed instantly. The faint hum became a roar. A deep vibration shook the ground. The glow from his weapon spread along its surface, lines of light racing like veins of fire. The crowd fell silent. The energy pulsed again, brighter, heavier. Soraka stopped mid-step. Her eyes widened. Her heart skipped. For the first time she saw it. The weapon was not small, not weak. It was only sleeping. Daniel's calm voice cut through the silence. You laughed because you saw what you wanted, but you never asked what lay hidden. The weapon unfolded with a sudden shift. Metal plates shifted, glowing parts extended. The weapon grew larger, heavier, transforming before everyone's eyes. What looked like a small stick now expanded into a massive energy cannon, its core glowing like a captured star. The audience erupted in shock. Thousands of voices shouted at once. Some roared in fear, others in awe. The Colosseum shook from the noise. Soraka froze. Her blade trembled in her grip. Her voice cracked when she spoke. Impossible. Humans cannot wield weapons like that. It would tear you apart. Daniel lifted the glowing cannon with ease, the energy pulsing steadily in his hands. He leveled it at her chest, his face calm, his voice steady. You mocked me for what you could see, but strength lies in what is unseen. The arena grew silent again. The crowd held their breath, every eye fixed on the human. The small weapon was gone. The true power now stood revealed. Soraka's pride shattered. She felt her body freeze. The weight of her own fear pressed against her chest. She could no longer laugh, no longer mock. She could only stare at the power humming in his hands. Daniel stepped forward, his cannon glowing, brighter with each step. The ground beneath his boots cracked. The air vibrated with raw energy. His calm words rang again. This is the first reveal. The crowd erupted once more. Some aliens shouted for Soraka to surrender. Others screamed for Daniel to fire. But none could deny the truth they had seen. The human's weapon was greater than any of them had believed. Soraka's grip tightened on her blade. Her pride told her to keep fighting. Her honor told her not, to kneel. But deep inside, fear whispered that she stood on the edge of defeat. Daniel aimed the cannon fully. Its glow cast long shadows across the arena walls. His voice carried to every ear. You wanted a fight. Now you stand before the truth. The suspense thickened. The audience could not look away. The laughter that once filled the arena was gone forever. In its place stood awe, fear, and the beginning of respect. The arena trembled as the human's weapon unfolded. What once looked like a stick of metal now towered like a beast of light, glowing veins running across its frame. The energy core burned bright, humming like thunder trapped inside a cage. The crowd was no longer laughing. Their mocking voices had turned to cries of shock, fear, and awe. Some pressed their hands to the barriers. Others shouted in disbelief, "That cannot be real." One alien hissed, "No human should carry such power." Soraka froze where she stood. Her massive blade seemed suddenly small, almost meaningless in the shadow of the glowing cannon pointed at her chest. Her throat tightened, her pride choking her, yet she raised her blade again, refusing to kneel. You tricked us," she growled, her voice cracked with rage and fear. "You let me laugh at you knowing all along." Daniel's calm eyes never wavered. His voice was steady. "I did not trick you. You only saw what you wanted to see, small, weak, fragile, but you never asked what lay below." The weapon's core pulsed, a wave of energy rippling across the floor. The stones shook, dust rained from the high walls. The barrier fields glowed brighter as if straining to hold back what was coming. Soraka's grip tightened on her blade. She roared, "Then I will break it, I will break you!" She charged, her heavy armor clanging, her blade raised high with all the fury left in her. The crowd screamed, their voices rising into chaos. Some cried out for Daniel to fire, others begged Soraka to stop. Daniel stood firm, his feet planted like roots in the ground. His weapon followed her movement, glowing brighter with each step she took closer. At the last moment when her blade came crashing down, the cannon roared. A blast of light erupted. The arena shook like an earthquake. The sound was deafening. The ground cracked wide. Dust and energy surged outward, throwing spectators against their barriers. Soraka's body was hurled back. Her shield shattered in an instant, her armor cracked, sparks flying from its core. She slammed into the ground, skidding across the stone. Her blade fell from her grasp, broken. The crowd gasped in one voice. Shock froze the entire arena. Thousands of alien eyes stared at the small human holding the impossible weapon. Daniel lowered the cannon slightly. The glow dimmed for a moment. His calm voice filled the silence. "This is the bigger one below." The words sank into every ear like heavy stone. The laughter that once filled the Colosseum was gone, replaced with the weight of fear and respect. Soraka groaned, pushing herself up on shaking arms. Her pride screamed at her not to surrender. Her people were watching. Her clan was watching. If she fell here, her name would be ruined. Yet when her eyes met Daniel's, she froze. His calm gaze was not cruel. He did not smirk, did not mock. He simply stood there with quiet confidence, his weapon humming softly in his grip. He looked not like a man drunk with victory, but like a soldier who had carried such battles many times before. "You should stay down," Daniel said. His voice was quiet but sharp. "This fight is over. Do not force me to end you." Soraka trembled, her pride burned hotter than her fear. She forced herself to stand, her legs shaking, her voice defiant though weak. "Do not kneel. I will never bow to a human." The crowd erupted with noise again. Some cheered her bravery. Others shouted at her foolishness. Many only watched in silence, holding their breath. Daniel sighed softly. His weapon shifted. The glow, returning, he raised it once more. "Then you will learn the cost of pride." Soraka screamed and charged again, her broken blade clutched in both hands. She swung with everything she had left. Her roar echoed through the arena like thunder. The EB cannon fired again. The blast shook the air. Dust and fire exploded across the arena floor. The energy wave swept through like a storm. For a moment nothing could be seen, only smoke and trembling stone. When the dust cleared, Soraka was on her knees, her blade shattered completely, her armor in ruins. She looked up at him with wide eyes, her pride bleeding away. Her voice was weak, trembling. What are you, human?" Daniel lowered the cannon. The glow faded until it returned to silence. His eyes never left hers. His answer was quiet. "I am what you feared I could never be." The crowd erupted once more. This time not in laughter, not in mockery, but in pure chaos. Some shouted in fear, others in awe. Many began chanting the word human, human. Soraka bowed her head, her pride broken, her voice a whisper only he could hear. "I mocked the wrong species." Daniel stood tall in the center of the arena, the cannon resting in his hands. The glow gone, but the memory of its power burning in every mind that had witnessed it. No one would ever laugh at a human again, not after this. And so, in the silence after the storm, the truth had been revealed. The small weapon was never small at all. The real power had always been hidden below. The arena still shook from the last blast. Dust and smoke swirled in the air. The alien crowd was stunned. Some pressed close to the barrier walls, their eyes wide, others whispered in fear. Their laughter from before was gone forever. Daniel stood in the center, the glowing cannon resting in his hands, his breath calm, his eyes sharp, his weapon hummed with quiet energy. The human looked untouchable. Soraka knelt on the broken floor, her armor cracked, her blade shattered. Every muscle in her body screamed in pain, yet her pride refused to let her stay down. Slowly, with shaking arms, she pushed herself up again. The crowd gasped. Some shouted for her to surrender. Others cheered her stubborn spirit. but no one could deny she was facing certain doom. Daniel's voice cut through the noise, quiet but powerful. "Stay down, warrior. This battle is finished." Soraka's chest heaved as she forced herself upright. Her violet eyes blazed with fire even through the fear. "I will not yield," she said. Her voice cracked but firm. "Not to you. Not to anyone," the audience roared. Their bloodlust reignited. They wanted more. They wanted to see if the alien girl's pride could stand against the human's hidden power. Daniel sighed softly, his face calm as stone. "Then you choose your end." The cannon in his hands glowed again. Energy hummed through the air. The ground trembled beneath his boots. Soraka roared and charged. Though her blade was broken, she swung the jagged piece with desperate fury. Sparks flew as stone shattered under her steps. Her roar echoed like thunder. Daniel raised the cannon. The glow brightened until the arena was bathed in light. He fired. The blast erupted like a star breaking free. The shockwave tore across the arena. The crowd cried out as barriers strained. Under the pressure, the stone floor split wider. Cracks racing outward, Soraka was thrown back again. Her body slammed against the ground. Dust and fire filled the air. For a moment, nothing could be seen, only the burning glow of energy. But then, through the smoke, her voice rose, weak but defiant. "Not—" Yet the crowd gasped. Soraka stood again, her armor nearly gone, her body trembling. But her violet eyes still glowed, her pride refused to let her fall. Daniel narrowed his eyes, his voice calm. "You should not rise, you only destroy yourself." Soraka's lips twisted into a bitter smile. "Maybe so," she whispered. "But if I fall fighting." She charged again, her steps uneven, her blade nothing more than shards. Yet her roar carried strength enough to shake the crowd's hearts. Daniel fired once more, the cannon thundered. The blast shook the arena. Soraka's body staggered. Under the impact, her shield was gone, her strength failing. Yet still she moved forward. The crowd erupted in madness. Some cheered her spirit, others screamed that she was a fool, but none could look away. Daniel's calm voice rang out once more. "You fight for pride. I fight for truth. Pride burns out. Truth endures." The cannon glowed brighter than ever, its core pulsing like a second sun. Daniel leveled it at her one last time. But then he did something unexpected. He did not fire. He lowered the weapon, his eyes locked on Soraka's, his voice quiet but sharp. "Yield and live." The crowd gasped again. Shock rolled across the arena. The human had shown mercy. Soraka stopped in her tracks. Her chest heaved. Her pride battled with her fear. Her people were watching. Her clan's honor weighed heavy, but her body screamed that she could not take. Another blast. Her broken blade slipped from her fingers. It fell to the cracked stone with a sharp clang. The sound echoed louder than thunder in the silence that followed. The crowd erupted. Some shouted in shock, others cheered, many simply stared in disbelief. The alien girl had refused to kneel before, but now she had dropped her weapon. Daniel lowered his cannon fully. The glow dimmed. The hum faded into silence. His voice was calm. "You chose wisely." Soraka's knees gave way. She dropped, her body trembling. She glared at him still, but it was no longer mockery, no longer laughter. It was respect, bitter but real. The announcer's voice finally broke through the chaos, his silver horns glowing as he lifted his staff. "The human stands victorious," he declared. His voice boomed across the Colosseum. The crowd roared, some with awe, some with fear, all with the knowledge that they had witnessed something impossible. Daniel stood tall in the center of the arena, his weapon resting by his side, his eyes scanning the crowd. The chants rose again. "Human, human." Echoing like thunder through the stars, Soraka lowered her head, her voice faint. "You fought with more than power. You fought with control. I see it now." Daniel's gaze softened for a moment. He spoke quietly, words only she could hear. "You mocked me, but you learned. That is enough." The arena lights dimmed. The crowd still roared. But in the center of the storm stood a human, calm and steady, carrying a weapon that had shaken an empire. And though the clash was over, its echoes would spread far beyond these walls. Rumors would race across the stars. No longer would humans be seen as weak, not after this clash of power. The Colosseum was no longer filled with laughter. The mocking voices that once shook the walls had vanished into silence. Only the echo of the crowd's roar remained, voices chanting the same word over and over. Human. Human. Daniel stood, in the center of the arena, his cannon dimmed but still heavy in his grip. The weapon no longer glowed with deadly power, yet its presence alone was enough to silence any doubt. He stood tall, calm, steady, as if the chaos had never touched him. Across from him, Soraka knelt on one knee, her armor shattered, her blade broken into dust. She had fought with all her pride, all her strength, yet she had been brought to her knees not by humiliation but by truth. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, her violet eyes lifted toward Daniel, no longer mocking, no longer filled with arrogance but with respect. The announcer's staff struck the stone floor. His deep voice rang across the Colosseum. The match is ended, the victor is the human. The crowd erupted. Some shouted in awe, others in disbelief. Many looked at Daniel with new eyes, no longer a fragile outsider, no longer a weak creature with a tiny weapon, but as something far more dangerous. Daniel lowered the cannon at last. With a soft hum it folded back, shrinking into its smaller form. The audience gasped again. The weapon that had shattered stone and cracked shields now looked once more like a simple stick of metal. A murmur ran through the crowd. It was never small. It was only hidden. The human deceived no one. We deceived ourselves. Daniel's voice broke through the noise, calm but strong. You mocked me for what you could see, but power is not always seen at first glance. Remember that before you laugh again. His words struck deep. The crowd quieted. Even the proudest aliens lowered their eyes. Soraka bowed. Her head, her voice faint but clear. I mocked you. I called you weak. I thought myself above you. She paused, her voice trembling with honesty. But I see now, human strength is not in size, not in noise. It is in control. It is in patience. It is in hidden power. Her words spread through the Colosseum, carried by whispers. The lesson of the fight would not be forgotten. Daniel looked down at her, his eyes calm, his voice low enough for only her to hear. You lost today, but you gained something greater than victory. You gained truth. Soraka's violet eyes shone with both shame and respect. She lowered her head further. Then I accept the truth, she said, her pride broken but her spirit not destroyed. The crowd continued to chant, louder now. Human, human. Their voices rolled like thunder. The sound spread beyond the arena walls, carried into the streets, carried into the stars. Word would travel quickly. Tales of the human who stood against a warrior and revealed hidden power. Stories would twist, grow, spread across planets. No longer would humans be called weak without thought. Now they would be feared, respected, remembered. Daniel stood silently, letting the chants wash over him. He did not raise his weapon. He did not bow. He simply stood steady as if carved from stone. He looked not for praise, not for glory, but for the silence that came after laughter. For that silence carried more weight than any cheer. It was the sound of respect. Soraka was carried away by her people, not as a failure, but as one who had faced the truth and survived. Her last glance at Daniel was not hatred but recognition. She would never mock him again, nor his kind. The announcer lowered his staff, his silver horns glowing faintly. His voice came softer now. Remember this day, for the laughter that once filled this arena has been replaced by silence, the silence of those who now understand. The crowd quieted again, not out of fear but out of awe. They had seen something that would echo through history. Daniel finally turned, his cannon now resting at his side. His steps were steady as he walked toward the gates. The stone cracked under his boots. His shadow stretched long, the chant still followed him, but his mind was quiet. He knew what had been won here today. It was not just victory in a fight, it was something deeper. It was the breaking of an illusion, the end of mockery, the birth of respect. As he stepped beyond the gates, the Colosseum roared one last time. The sound carried through the city, across the skies, into the stories of countless worlds. And when the echo faded, only silence remained. The silence after laughter. The silence that told every being across the stars. Humans were never small. They were only waiting to reveal the bigger power hidden below.